Imagine it's a beautiful day at the beach. Everyone's laughing and having a good time, and with sunscreen on the tip of your nose, you're reminiscing. Even staring up at the clouds and the big blue skies. Then all of a sudden I walk up and said to you, I can save you $500,000 or more in the next 17 years if you follow my financial strategy? Would this pique your interest? What if I then said to you that all you would have to do is have fewer children? And by fewer children I mean 1 to 3 instead of the typical 4 to 7. Before you think about kicking sand in my face and rolling over to let the sun massage your back, it's important to note that Bill Gates' parents had 3 children, Warren Buffett's parents also had 3 children, and Jeff Bezos' parents had just 1. It's not because they didn't have the money. It's because quality over quantity makes you richer. But it's also that wealthier parents are better able to concentrate their energy and resources on fewer offsprings and thereby increase the likelihood that their children become wealthier themselves. Since most rich people value efficiency, financial discipline, savings, and having less debt, fewer children therefore is a strategic decision which encapsulates what they already practice and believe in. I see that I have your attention now. Wonderful. Now imagine once again the sound of the ocean and laughter slowly fading away and the sight of children building sand castles disappearing into nothingness. As you focus on the sound of my voice, I'm going to take you on a journey of past and present. At the end of this journey, as the sound and smell of the beach come back into focus, you will have learned something valuable, which only a selective few know about. If implemented, this newfound information could make you richer than you had ever dreamed of. But before we go on this journey, please subscribe to our channel and like the video. Your support helps us bring valuable, engaging and informative content to people just like you. That said, let's begin. Some social theorists disagree with the assumption that having fewer children make you richer. They say that it is a myth because what constitutes a cost when it comes to raising children is far from clear, especially given that children, hopefully, contribute positively to parents' utility. People who study income and fertility know that the wealthier a person is or the more developed a nation happens to be, results in fewer children being born. This is known as the demographic economic paradox. And this phenomenon has been happening for the past 70 years. In 1952, the average global family had 5 children. Now, they have less than 3. Coined by author Herwig Bjerk, whose work focuses on populations and environments, the demographic economic paradox means that the higher the degree of education and GDP per capita of a human population, the fewer children are born in any developed country. To give a specific example, in Iran in the 1950s, women had an average of 3 years of schooling and raised 7 children on average. But by 2010, when Iranian women had 9 years of schooling on average, the average fertility rate in the country had dropped to 1.8. Countries whose education is still lagging substantiates these findings. For instance, in 2010, women in Niger had 1.3 years of education on average, and an average of more than 7 children, more than double the global average at that time. Speaking of West African countries, Aliko Dangote, the richest Nigerian in the world, was born as an only child. His parents consolidated their money to send him to the oldest and most prestigious Islamic university in the world, resulting in him becoming the person that he is today. Some papers on this topic still maintain that fewer children does little to affect the accumulated net wealth of a specific family because some families engage in activities that are less income intensive. Therefore, an expenditure-based approach by most studies of obtaining the cost of having children is limiting because it does not account for non-market production activities. Elsewhere, some social scientists claim that in situations where the economy is doing well, people tend to have more children. They cite coal mining during the 1800s and the housing boom in the early 2000s as examples. Yet, coal mining may have led to some couples having children, but less children also survived due to inadequate medical technology and poor air quality where coal mining were prevalent. Children of those families did not have a good quality of life. Many of them, in fact, worked in the coal mines with their fathers, resulting in permanent damage to their bones and muscles. They were not only exposed to hazardous chemicals like uranium and mercury, which had profound negative effects on their health, but many of them were injured by collapsing tunnels and drowned while mining in underwater situations. Moreover, while some couples may have seen an increase in the property value of their homes back in the early 2000s, what followed soon after was the Great Recession, which cost 10 million Americans to lose their homes, lower consumer spending, and an overall fall in GDP. In total, the collapse of the housing market back in 2008 not only resulted in 3.1 million Americans filing for foreclosure but a $6 trillion loss of housing wealth. It is not that children don't bring intrinsic or sentimental value to their parents and that non-market production activities aren't important, but having fewer children inevitably saves a family more money in the long run. And in the case of an economic downturn, smaller households are much able to provide financial stability and consistency than bigger families. I agree that having more children does not affect the overall net wealth of the family, but it does, however, still affect their overall ability to save money and cover their expenses. Fewer children leads to greater societal implications. Such economic risks includes rising healthcare costs and a smaller global workforce. A smaller working population puts more pressure on those who are working to support those who are collecting pensions. This could ultimately lead to an economic slowdown if countries don't prepare and alter their pension systems accordingly, to account for our aging population. This isn't the first time we have been faced with such dilemma. During the Eisenhower era, Americans achieved stunning new levels of prosperity, while other parts of the world struggled to rebuild from the devastation of World War II. Eisenhower's combination of low taxes, balanced budgets, and public spending allowed the economy to prosper. The economy overall grew by 37% during the 1950s and unemployment remained low, about 4.5%. At the end of the decade, the median American family had 30% more purchasing power than at the beginning. Inflation was minimal, in part because of Eisenhower's efforts to balance the federal budget. Furthermore, the GI Bill gave veterans an affordable college education, providing a pool of highly educated employees to the workforce.
Maybe a nice home in suburbia, and some nice kids, and a beer and a ball game on a Saturday afternoon.
And we'll have the living room right in here.
Cheap oil from U.S. wells fueled industry while advances in science and technology improved productivity. It is no surprise then that around that same time America experienced its biggest rise in birth rates in history, over 76 million births from 1946 to 1964. The children from that time period were referred to as the baby boomer generation. But with the decline in spending power and the rise in the cost of living, modern society is struggling to overcome some of the obstacles that plagued their predecessors. Moreover, in every economy or time period, smart people responded by having fewer children and cutting back on their expenses. When John F. Kennedy said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country," he wasn't just speaking to Americans in his time period but to future Americans. Today, we must answer that call of duty by doing what smart people have been doing for a long time, and which is adjusting their lifestyle to meet the demands of their social and economic environment. Some social scientists and authors like Herwig Bjerke sees having fewer children as a bad thing in our current economic situation, going so far as to say that this may prove destructive for future economies and societies, even citing, in one instance, that fewer babies leads to smaller tax revenues for the elderly to draw from an older age. But that is just one way of looking at the situation. Because from a parent's perspective, fewer children means less expenses, responsibilities, and opportunity cost, which leads to higher savings, fewer debt and peace of mind. As a matter of fact, average middle-income parents with fewer children, according to recent studies from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, save an average of $233,610 per children from birth through age 17. Meanwhile, higher-income families save $500,000 or more. since housing and food make up the bulk of these costs, with childcare, education, transportation and health care comprising almost all of the rest. Parents who prioritize quality over quantity get richer and richer. The richer you are, the less children you tend to have, but that is because higher income parents value quality over quantity. The issue here is not whether or not an aging population will have enough social welfare programs to benefit them upon retirement. Because if our government managed to balance the country's budget, cut back on unnecessary spending, and reinvested the country's energy and resources domestically, then the elderly wouldn't have anything to worry about. And the key thing to remember is that this has already been done before. The question rather is, how can we train and educate young people to come up with solutions for the future that will make our society more sustainable, efficient, and productive? Thank you for watching our video. Please share your thoughts on the topic. We would love to hear from you. Let us know if you agree or disagree that having fewer children make you richer. And also share your solutions for alternative ways to save money in our current economy.